Are you stuck in the past? Functional medicine has come a long way and it has helped countless numbers of people. But today, many practitioners are still using and clinging onto outdated approaches that are missing critical pieces of the healing puzzle and aren't really taking a bigger step back to look at the even grander picture. So today I wanted to show you more of a real life example of why it's time that we evolve. Hi there, I'm Sarah Korzeniewski, co-owner of Wellness Code Academy, where we offer programs for innovative wellness professionals seeking a holistic, trauma-informed approach beyond the protocol model for greater success. I'm sure many of you watching are in a lot of Facebook groups, and Facebook groups that are related to health and wellness. And if you're a practitioner, you're probably in numerous different practitioner-focused groups where people are submitting questions or they're posting cases and asking for feedback. I myself am in a few of those groups, and I often see things that are posted that just continue to remind me and to continue to fuel my mission and Jen and ours motivation to keep speaking and sharing our message that we can do better. And we really owe it to ourselves and to our clients who are investing a lot of their hard-earned money into working with us, looking for guidance and solutions on their journeys to live not only healthier, but just more well-rounded and have a higher quality of life. I just wanted to provide you with an example, and I really want to try to do this with as highest integrity as I possibly can. I didn't want to post a screenshot of what this practitioner posted just in case somebody recognized it, and I will do my very best to keep things private and to not disclose a lot of information that will let anybody know who this practitioner is or who their client is. If you already understand and you already utilize HTMA, some of this may sound familiar to you. And if you're not, this is a great learning experience to understand the power that using an HTMA, but not only in the traditional sense, but utilizing it in the way that Jen and I teach inside of Holistic HTMA Pro. This practitioner had posted a bit of a case. Now, I also realize that she's likely not posting every single thing, so I can only assess what I'm seeing here. There could be more happening behind the scenes or one-on-one with her client that I'm not fully aware of. First of all, if you don't know what a HTMA is, it stands for hair tissue mineral analysis, and it's just a small sample of hair at the root. And hair is a really great way to assess mineral status within the body. Now, it's not a cut and dry black or white test. It's not a, oh, if this is low, we need it. If this is high, there's too much. There's a whole lot more nuances that go into it than that. So it's really important to work with a truly qualified practitioner that has been properly trained in it. Again, hopefully utilizing our Holistic HTMA Pro program. So the hair tissue, it's really much, much more than just looking at minerals. It's like, yes, it's looking at minerals. I mean, we also get to see some toxic elements, and you know, there's ratios in there that can help us to assess certain physiological factors such as the state of the nervous system, adrenal function, vitality, thyroid function, blood sugar, immune function, things like that. And that's very traditional. That's the area of focus that most people that utilize HTMA are looking at. They're looking for those physiological things, and they tend to then recommend supplements based on those factors to try to get the minerals to balance. This is where Holistic HTMA Pro really stands apart, because it's the only HTMA program that I know of that doesn't just look at the physiological, but goes way way, way deeper into all of the amazing psychological factors that minerals can reveal, because minerals are not just a reflection of the physical body, they're actually a huge reflection of the mental and emotional body. And so Jen and I always say that HTMA is really not a lab. It's so much more than that, because it really mirrors the wear and tear that somebody has gone through in their life. And it's the mental and emotional things that are also going to hugely impact mineral levels, not just what's going on physiologically. A huge mistake and a huge missed opportunity that we see in people that utilize HTMA is that they're just like, okay, here's the minerals that are out of balance. Here are the supplements that we're going to recommend to now bring things back into balance. But if you're not actually considering, acknowledging, aware of, and know how to actually work with the mental and emotional aspect of things based on HTMA, then taking the supplements is just a band-aid. It might make someone feel better in the short term, and then you might think, oh great, this person healed. And I used to feel that way too, because let's face it, that is what standard functional medicine teaches us. As I went through my practitioner journey, I started to really understand and see this is not enough. Some people are not even going to get better at all with this approach. Some people are actually going to get worse, and we'll talk about why that might be in a minute here. And I often had clients who would feel better and would be like, oh my gosh, you helped me so much, great. But then I would see them come back in a year, sometimes 3 years, sometimes even 5 years. Sometimes I'm even having clients almost 10 years into this come back and be like, hey, you helped me so much the first time, but like I'm dealing with all these symptoms again. And it was like, okay, because we really were only scratching the surface and we weren't getting to the root causes of the root causes. Okay, and when I say root causes, I'm thinking, a lot of people think I run a stool test, I find bugs, I kill them, that's a root cause. I run a hormone test, there's hormone imbalances. I maybe recommend diet and supplements to address those and sprinkle in some lifestyle factors and things like that. And, that's not really getting to the deeper root causes of any sort of health challenge. That's my little background on HTMA and really what it can do. And it's the only lab test that we know of that can actually look at the real root causes. The 3 biggest root causes of any sort of chronic health challenge, and we say all disease is one disease, are low cellular energy production and minerals. Minerals are the fuel for your cells. They are the energy for your cells. So low cellular energy production, nervous system dysregulation, and the third one is accumulated stress and unresolved trauma. And HTMA can actually reveal a lot of stressors and a lot of the low cellular energy, and as well as the trauma piece. And oftentimes you'll have clients who maybe are not aware that they even have those issues. They are stress deniers, or they don't feel that trauma is a factor for them because, they grew up in a loving home, which we always hope is the case, but yet are still dealing with those things and don't know it. And then they end up going down the rabbit hole of trying to figure out what's the thing that's wrong, what's my root cause, when there's this whole huge, real deeper reason that they're struggling that they're not even aware of. And so utilizing and implementing the HTMA as we teach it helps to bring to light those factors, but only if you know what you're looking for, and if you're then trained and you learn how to actually utilize the information to help clients. Anyway, now without further delay, we're going to talk about this case study that somebody submitted in a practitioner group. The HTMA came back as a 4 lows pattern. So a 4 lows pattern is when the 4 main minerals, which are calcium, magnesium, sodium, and potassium, all come back low, lower than ideal. All right, so this is a male client who's a little bit older. He's in his late 60s. And the symptoms that they're dealing with is fatigue. That's a top complaint I hear from all of my clients. And poor sleep. Well, yeah, poor sleep could definitely contribute to fatigue. He wakes up every 2 hours. And she said she suspected it could be due to blood sugar, histamine, and inflammation. And I'm not exactly sure what drew her to those conclusions. Blood sugar could definitely be part of it. And so if it were me, I would actually recommend that they purchase a glucometer and start checking their blood sugars regularly to actually see. Because a lot of times clients, they want to see that data and that information. And then as they start to shift their nutrition and their life, then they can actually see what their blood sugars are doing based on that. They also are dealing with chronic pain, particularly in the joint, in their back. I guess they have a diagnosis of arthritis, which now the inflammation that she suspects makes sense. I would say if anyone is dealing with any sort of chronic symptom of any kind, there's inflammation. We already know that. Like, we don't need a lab to tell us that. There's likely inflammation happening to varying degrees. And this person is actually on quite a few medications. They're on a cholesterol lowering medication, which that's a whole nother video. But we know cholesterol is really important for the brain. And especially as this person starts to get older, in their late 60s already, cognition is really important. And studies are actually showing that we actually want cholesterol to be higher in the 220 to 240 range to protect the brain. These medications were recommended by their doctor. And of course, if you're not the prescribing physician, you can't tell them to go off of it, but we can educate them. That's an important role that we have. Their person is also on an antidepressant. They're also on a sedative to treat insomnia. And sometimes certain medications that are used to help us sleep can actually negatively affect our mitochondria, which we know mitochondria produces the cellular energy. So is that one reason why they're dealing with fatigue as well? They're also on not only an antidepressant, but an anxiety medication as well. Some other notable symptoms that she listed here was tinnitus, depending on how you say that, but ringing in the ear. Also the anxiety, which of course they're on medication for, and a high activity level. So very active person, works out, even with a trainer. Okay, so it's interesting though that someone is dealing with a lot of fatigue and not sleeping well, but seems to have quite a lot of energy to expend towards activity. So that's something that I kind of note in my head. And of course, I'd be curious to know how long these symptoms have been going on for. When did they start? Obviously, I don't have a huge background on this person. But before she even got the HTMA test results back, she started this person on CoQ10, which I would agree with, at least being on the cholesterol lowering medications, taking a histamine nutrients to help with histamine levels, which again, I didn't get a whole lot of information in that signal histamine issues, so I'd be curious as to specifically what she felt kind of was a red flag for histamine issues. Also put him on some magnesium, some taurine, some glycinate, some quality sea salt. I agree with that. And put him on an optimal electrolyte blend. So already before HTMA came back, we've got 6 supplements on board. And then she did mention that she started suggesting some diet changes. I don't know what their diet is like currently in more specific detail, but she recommended decreasing sugar because this person, I guess, is a self-diagnosed sugar addict, and increasing protein. Again, I don't know what kind of protein, animal protein, plant protein, and that's really all she has listed. Now, of course, I am all for not overwhelming clients and kind of taking things step by step, but for somebody that is dealing with inflammation, that we can clearly see that it's happening, in my opinion, in my experience, that's not going to be enough, but maybe it could be a good, at least, starting point. And so now she got his HTMA back, and it's the 4 lows pattern. And I'm going to show you the test here in a second without any identifying names or anything on it. She was going to be starting him on a 4 lows formula. There is a company out there that does create HTMA specific formulas. I don't personally use them. If people want to use them, totally their choice. And typically a formula already has quite a few different nutrients in them. I don't know exactly how many, so you're starting with quite a few already. And then she's going to add in a few other things to this formula. So she's going to add in camu, which is for whole food vitamin C, a B complex, taurine, potassium gluconate, selenium, chromium, dandelion root and leaves, milk thistle, and L-tyrosine. Not including the nutrients that are already in the formula, she's going to add in 9 additional things to that formula. Like even multivitamins, I'm not a big fan of multivitamins anyway. And yes, these formulas are much more custom than like multivitamins are. But you still have to think that just because it's in one product doesn't mean it's one supplement. I think people kind of tend to get caught up on that and be like, oh, well, it's just one formula. Think about how many things are going into this. And then she also is recommending a binder for them. She's recommending digestive support with bitters plus pancreatin and ox bile for gallbladder, even though she already recommended taurine, which can be a gallbladder support, and I'm guessing that's why she added it in there. I do suspect that even though they didn't say that they had specific gut issues, of course we know that someone doesn't have to have obvious digestive issues to have gut problems. However, at the same time, and yes, the gallbladder is part of the digestive system. Like this person is not reporting any specific gallbladder issues. I didn't hear anything that kind of made me think, oh wow, they have a gallbladder issue. So I guess I'm always curious as to like, are we just throwing the kitchen sink at the gut, knowing that the gut's important? So we know we got to support it. So let's just put them on a bunch of different supplements for it. I'm not really sure the thinking there. And so she mentioned digestive support with bitters. So I'm not sure if there's like additional supplements that she's adding along with bitters and doing pancreatin and ox bile separate. I don't really know for sure, but that could be another possibly 5 more supplements to add in, something like that. And then she talked about emphasizing sodium and potassium in the diet. This is kind of the caveat to that, because we often have a lot of students that come to us and they're like, oh yeah, this person's really low in a lot of these nutrients. So I'm going to then just recommend that they increase those nutrient-rich foods in their diet. But here's the one thing that I always want people to think about is, again, when it goes back to the gut and gut being so important and so pivotal and not needing to have gut issues specifically to have gut problems, like yes, the gut is hugely important to address, but that's the thing, like adding in a food just because it's high in a mineral, what if their gut specifically can't break it down, digest it, absorb it, and assimilate it because of how their digestive system is functioning? Just because a food has a nutrient in it doesn't mean it's going to benefit them if their gut can't address it. There's this belief in sometimes standard functional medicine that, well, but I'm supporting their gut because I put them on digestive bitters, pancreatin, ox bile, and other digestive support. And there's also belief of, well, I'm trying to support their nutrition because I told them to decrease their sugar and increase their protein. In today's world, like this stuff can be a component, right, of the healing journey. And this approach worked a lot better 10 plus years ago. But especially post-pandemic, we are in a whole new world right now. People are dealing with a lot more stressors, effects from the pandemic itself, but also just as the world is changing. People have more accumulated stress and trauma than ever before. We are surrounded by things that are affecting us much more than they were 10 plus years ago. This type of approach doesn't really work for as many people as it would have in the past. So that's why we got to keep moving forward. Really think about what we're doing here and how it's really affecting people. And yes, a lot more practitioners today are aware of how important nervous system regulation is, and they are becoming more aware of the role of trauma, but they don't really fully understand all of the moving parts and actually how to work with clients in that way. Supplements and nutrients in and of themselves, so it's not just single products, but the nutrients in and of themselves, provide additional information that our bodies need to process. However, when the body is in a state of chronic low cellular energy, which again, we can identify through a hair tissue mineral analysis, and being in a 4 lows pattern is one sign that this person is in a chronic low cellular energy state. Combined with metabolic chaos, so his blood sugars are out of whack, his cholesterol's out of whack, and nervous system dysregulation, then the body lacks the capacity to effectively process extra input. Nutrients, supplements are extra input, extra information. So if you actually were to imagine how you feel when you're overwhelmed with too much information, it's similar to having your computer open with tons of tabs. The system starts to slow down. It becomes less efficient and it struggles to function optimally until we close down some of those tabs. So this is the same way that supplements can be an additional burden on an already taxed system. But this has become the standard functional medicine approach of let's run labs, and it doesn't even matter what lab it is, and let's treat the lab with these supplements to try to fix the lab. Even if we are talking about nutrition and talking about lifestyle and talking about habits and talking about stress and telling them about trauma, it has to be done from a collaborative space where you help the clients become their own best self-healers, because we are all wired for self-efficacy. At the core of trauma is a loss of power. So if we are just providing instructions, providing protocols, eat this, take this, go to bed at this time, do these things for detox, then we're taking away their power. Information and instruction does not equal transformation. And that is what we need more of right now, is helping to increase transformational medicine over the standard functional medicine approach. This person's HTMA can provide invaluable insight into their body's mineral status and energy production. And in this case, their report shows the 4 lows pattern, which is a state of extreme metabolic burnout. So this isn't going to be fixed by just adding in supplements or adding in a lot of supplements, even if there are other things that they're doing. To me, in my opinion, this is too many supplements. It's about addressing the real root causes of why his body is in this state to begin with. If he's looking for long-term solutions, and maybe he's not, maybe he wants a quick fix, and so it's like, just tell me all the supplements, tell me what diet to eat. It's all about kind of what the client is looking for and who you want to be working with. I'm going to show you now his hair tissue test. This is not about shaming anybody. This is really just about a learning opportunity. There's no information on here that will tell you who this is or who this came from. Definitely very low, like just about everything is low. Everything is tanked. And yes, that can sort of happen a little bit with age, but I would suspect that there's lots of room for improvement here. What I wanted to do with this, because I could be here for 90 plus minutes doing a deep dive into this HTMA, and I'm not going to do that, because if you really want that, then Holistic HTMA Pro is totally for you, and I'll put links down underneath this video. Outside of the supplemental range, and typically we in our program recommend to practitioners, like, what are the top priorities? Because I think that a lot of practitioners also get stuck on the fact that, like, oh, I have to give them everything that's going to make them feel better super fast, because then I'm going to be the person that got them better. And it's like, yay me, but healing doesn't work that way. It's like peeling back layers of an onion, one step at a time. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. You can't heal by shoving a whole elephant in your mouth. That's also kind of a problem, especially if people are working in a way where they only have a few sessions. They feel like they have to give them all of the things like right out of the gate. But I would say it's always important, take a step back. What's top priority? What's priority number one? And I would say the gut is definitely a huge priority. He's not maybe even really absorbing things all that well. So finding out what eating to reduce inflammation looks like for him, start educating him on that, and how can, he start to implement some small steps to get to that space. And there is no one way to eat to reduce inflammation. And my suspicion, just based on my experience and like what I know, is just cutting out sugar and increasing proteins probably not going to be enough. So that would be number one. I would also say, let's check your blood sugars, get a glucometer. And I would say sleep would be another high one. What are his sleep habits like? What's he doing leading up for the 2 hours leading up to bed? Is he on his phone, surfing the internet, watching TV? So he's got all this blue light going on. What time does he even go to sleep? And to have some conversations with him so that he can determine what action steps he wants to take. Again, putting him back in the driver's seat. Because I would even challenge her to, if she does want to recommend supplements, what are no more than 5 that, again, would help support his top priorities. So I'm not going to go into more of the physiological aspects, but I want to talk about the lesser discussed psychological aspects to show you just how powerful utilizing the HTMA in the way that we teach it can actually help you be a better coach and help put your clients back in the driver's seat, help give them back their power, and be a transformational coach. So some of the patterns that I'm seeing here, he's more in a fight or flight alarm state of stress for sure. He might be feeling more irritable, a little more uptight, having some nervousness, which that makes sense based on anxiety, but that he's maybe unable to slow down, or that he's not relaxing enough and he's pushing. He continues, like, his cellular energy is low, but he was talking about that he has high activity levels. He does a lot of activity and he works out with a trainer and he does things on his own. Like, so someone who's super tired but yet is expending all this energy, is this the mode that he's been living in his entire life? Because a lot of times people, because of unresolved trauma and because of our society, they don't value rest. Rest is seen as a weakness, or it's seen as I don't accomplish anything, or I am lazy, right? These are the beliefs, the stories, the identities that people have that are ultimately driving their behaviors, that are causing their health to become compromised. So have conversations around this. Be like, hey, some of the patterns based on your HTMA are showing me that, like, maybe you're unable to slow down. You've been in survival mode for a really long time, and, you're not really relaxing, or you're continuing to push through even if you don't feel like you have the energy or capacity to. Talk to me about that. Does that resonate for you? Or where in your life have you not felt that you could relax? Or what do you feel prevents you from being able to slow down more? And listen and have these conversations. That's transformational coaching. I'm also seeing that he might be swallowing his pain in survival mode. And so you could ask him, is there any place in your life where you feel like you're swallowing your pain? Or is there anything in your life that you feel, is causing you some distress, but you don't feel like you can speak up about it? And then start having conversations around that and have him, come up with some ideas on what actions he might take in order to start addressing those things. Because again, minerals are fuel for your cells. They're the gas for your car. What causes you to burn through gas? Driving your car, right? And the more you drive it, the more your gas tank is going to get utilized. The same goes for the minerals in your cells. So it's very clear here that he's been using his minerals to go. And so again, just relying on replacing some of that stuff with supplements without identifying not only the behavior, but the reasons for the behavior, right? What beliefs, what values, what emotions, What identities does he have that's causing him to feel like he can't relax, that's then tanking the minerals? Okay, but a lot of people, that's not what a lot of people in the standard functional medicine space are doing. I'm also seeing, obviously he's in significant burnout, very low energy, low vitality, and we can see that in his symptoms. And there's also maybe some sign that he's holding on to resentment. So you could start asking him about that. His capacity to keep pushing through is depressed. He's got his foot on the gas and the brake at the same time. So, you know, that's like, again, where someone is feeling physically tired and their body is trying to break, but it's like, oh no, I'm going to work out with my trainer, I'm going to do all this stuff. And so they're trying to like hit the gas at the same time. Like, I don't even have to be talking to this client to know that his minerals are spot on based on what he's feeling. And there's likely some of these things that are happening beneath the surface this practitioner could very well be totally missing out on. This mineral presentation, definitely depleted, can also contribute to depression, but yet now he's on antidepressants for that. Some feeling despair, hopelessness, possibly brain fog, feeling withdrawn, and definitely some chronic health issues of all kinds going on here. And just being in the 4 lows pattern in and of itself is really the end point of severe long-standing stress. But he could be a very productive person, very hard driven, very hard on himself. He could be a perfectionist, maybe obsessive compulsive, feeling stuck in his mind, in the process of giving up on something, becoming more negative, disconnected. Again, I'm getting the unable to relax, spinning his wheels, but just sinking deeper in, feeling undervalued. These are things then that you could start asking them transformational coaching questions around. You know, does this resonate with you? Where in your life have you? Have you found that ever in your life you've been in this state? And he also has a bowl pattern here, which I didn't even learn about. I've taken many HTMA courses and I didn't even learn about a bowl pattern until later on. Some of them don't even talk about these patterns. And the programs that do tend to not really tell you like give you more specific how-tos of working with them. They might just say, well, refer them to a therapist, you know, send them to a counselor. I think that the belief that being trauma informed is not a practitioner or health coach's job. And I think that that is the further away from the truth as possible. Yes, that could be a strategy, part of the strategy. I have many clients who already come to me having done therapy. First of all, it's important to know that not all therapists are trauma informed or even really know a whole lot about the nervous system. You typically need additional training for that. And I have a client right now who is a therapist and she has validated that for me. Not all people will be willing to do that, to go there, or maybe can't afford it for whatever reason. Sometimes they've done that and they've been traumatized by that experience and now they don't want to go back and do it. But trauma is going to show up in your work with clients, and it probably already is. And I would say it will in probably I'd be willing to bet it's going to happen in every client you encounter. And it's going to happen. Have you ever had clients who resist changes, who you come up with this beautiful protocol for them and you give it to them and they're like, all right, yeah, I'm going to go. And then they come back into a follow-up session and they haven't really done anything, or they did it for a short time and they stopped doing it. You know, that's unresolved trauma. I've also unfortunately seen a lot of experiences where wellness practitioners actually caused more trauma in their work with clients, even if they referred them to a therapist, because they were not well trauma informed or skilled and didn't really know how to work with it, how to identify it, all of that. So regardless of if it's something that you are super passionate about, like, it's a must in today's day and age. Okay. And this is not something that most standard functional medicine programs are really teaching about. And if so, it's again just like, let's tell you about it, or let's tell these people to refer them to a therapist. He's got a slight bowl pattern, and you can typically see it because it like kind of looks like a bowl. This could be a sign that he's defending something that's not working, feels stuck with no way out, feels like the world is closing in, might be trapped by a memory or something else that they can't control, or even having low self-esteem. Obviously, you wouldn't go into a session with a client and be like, oh yeah, this pattern shows you have low self-esteem. Like, no, you've got to have conversations with them. In order to get effective solutions, we need to be asking more effective questions, and we need to do it from a space of empathy and compassion, but we also need it to be in a space of, again, being able to put them in the driver's seat of their own healing journeys, helping them to come to their own aha moments, to their own conclusions, and to be a huge part of the process of coming up with action steps of what they can do to help support them. So if you're still using the same functional medicine strategies that you learned 10 years ago, or you took a program who is teaching the same standard functional medicine strategies that they have been teaching for 10 plus years, then it's time to evolve, wouldn't you say? You know, the science has advanced, and so should our approaches. So let's move beyond the outdated supplement first or protocol model and really focus on a truly personalized, trauma-informed, transformational coaching, root causes of root causes healing. And so if you want to join us in this mission, then I encourage you to check out our link below. You could also visit wellnesscodeacademy.com to learn a lot more. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this informative, and we'll see you next time.